Okay, so we got some old basketball cards here from the early 90s right here. We'll talk about them a little bit. All right, what do we got here? We got Alton Lister. I remember Alton Lister getting dunked on by Sean Kemp back in 91 in the playoffs. Warriors against Sonics. I remember Sean Kemp shitting all over him, man, dunking on him, had his nuts all up in his mouth. It was just one of the nastiest dunks I've ever seen in my life, man. It was, and I think it was in the Kingdome, I think it was. And I remember the dunk was so nasty that Lister actually gave Kemp some dap after the dunk. You know, it gave him some dap, so I thought that was pretty cool. We got my man Kevin Duckworth, the late Kevin Duckworth, from Thornridge High School, man, in Illinois, in Dalton, Illinois, man. One decent center, had a decent mid-range game. You know, he was on the good teams, the good glory days of the Portland Trailblazers, early 90s. You know, he was a starting center. Had a nice little touch from the mid-range. He can rebound a little bit. But he passed away a few years ago, unfortunately. But I watched him play a lot, and seemed like he was a very nice guy, man. Okay, who do we got? We got Bimbo Coles. You know, he was a journeyman, backup point guard. You know, played with the Heat in the early '90s. You know, he's on the team with Glenn Rice, Ronnie Cycli, Grant Long. You know, he was a backup point guard doing his thing. He was decent. You know, he averaged about 8 points a game. He had a nice mid-range, decent shooter. You know, he went to Virginia Tech. You know, so he's a Hokie. Who do we got here? We got Steve Smith, the Smitty. You know. Good three-point shooter. He liked to play with his back to the basket a lot. He was a real crafty ball player. He was smooth. He was smooth with it, man. You know, high draft pick. I thought he should have been better than what he came out to be, than what he was. But he still had a solid career. You know, Michigan State's finals. You know, he's a Spartan for life. Decent ball player, and a decent career, and very nice guy. Who do we got here? Mario Elie. Mario Elie was a decent ball player. He had a set jumper, set shot. He played on the Rockets teams. I remember him throwing the ball in Danny Ainge's face. You know, actually, Danny Ainge threw the ball in his face. And I remember Elie was about to beat the shit out of him, but you know, he was able to hold his cool. But Elie was a decent, solid ball player. He was a hustler. He liked to get out and run on the fast break. Decent ball player. AJ English. I don't know much about AJ English. You know, he was a backup. I believe he was a backup point guard. Who do we got here? We got Terry Mills, three-point shooter. I know he gained a lot of weight towards the end of his career. But I remember him, you know, playing with the Pistons and the Nets. He played with a lot of teams, man, but he was known for his three-point shooting. You got another Kevin Duckworth card. Who do we got here? We got Quentin Daly. Quentin Daly was a solid ball player. I remember him, you know, he played with the Bulls in the mid-'80s. You know, he was with, when Jordan first got in the league, you know, Jordan's rookie year or whatnot, you know, Quentin Daly was on the team. He was a starting guard, and he was one of the better players on the team. With him, Orlando Woolridge, you know, a young Michael Jordan. So he was a decent ball player. He can really shoot the ball. You know, had a nice mid-range game. Good ball player. Craig Hodges, one of the best shooters I've ever seen. Three-time three-point champion. Three-point contest champion. All-Star weekend. Never got that much playing time, but when he did come in the game, man, he came in the game firing, man. Uh, he could really shoot the 3-pointer. Had a smooth jumper. Uh, nice guy. Actually met him a couple times. Growing up in Chicago. So who else we got? We got Doug Overton, journeyman backup point guard. I remember him with the Sixers. He was on the team, like during Iverson's rookie year. He kind of backed up Iverson, but he was a backup point guard. And who we got here? Is this Ron Harper? I believe so. Ron Harper. Yep, he had some good years with the Clippers. Uh, Clippers had a good team, man, back in like the early 90s, like 92, 93. They were on the come up, man. They had like a young Charles Smith. Danny Manning was doing his thing. Uh, who else did they have? They had the Snake, Ken Norman. So they were on the come up, man. They just couldn't get through in the playoffs, man. I remember one year they took the Rockets to the distance. They took them to the distance. It went 5 games back when the first round was the best of 5. And then they could never get out the first round. I think in the first round of '92, they lost to the Jazz. But I believe that series went 5 games too. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Ron Harper, good ball player, and very nice guy.